Night shift on Arclight Depot never truly went quiet. The station breathed through pumps, fans, and the oxyloop reclaimer, a low hum that never slept. Bram Holt staggered in the service spine and tried to laugh it off. But the joke died in his throat. He grabbed the rail, eyes wide, mouth open, pulling air that did not satisfy. His knees buckled, and he started to slide. Rowan Sable, Chief Life Support Engineer, caught him before his head hit the bulkhead. Bram's pulse raced, then steadied, as if embarrassed by weakness. Medical to service spine, now, Rowan said. In the next corridor, a woman in a maintenance suit leaned on the wall, breathing too hard for a slow walk. A minute later, calls came from the sleeping pods. Voices said people would not wake, as if the night itself had weight. Rowan had seen accidents. He had seen bad seals. He had never seen breath fail in a pattern that looked like a choice. If the drift kept up for another shift, the depot would start losing people by dawn. He pulled oxygen partial pressure traces for the last 8 hours. The curve sat within tolerance, just a hair below target. The kind of drift that never earned an alarm. It was also the kind that killed slowly, turning competence into mistakes and fatigue into falls. Rowan did not trust dashboards. He trusted the small things that did not line up, the quiet mismatches that meant someone had smoothed a truth. He drilled past clean lines into raw sensor noise. The downward drift was not random. It repeated at the same minute marks after every canister swap. The question hit him sharp and cold. Who was touching the air? And why? Bram blinked and tried to sit up. I'm fine, just dizzy, Bram said. Rowan kept his voice flat. You're not fine, you're early. Bram frowned. Early for what? Rowan did not answer. He was already building the chain in his head. A canister arrived. The seal mark film looked clean. The latch locked, and flow went through. People kept working until their lungs protested. Nobody called it oxygen loss until somebody collapsed. Rowan reached the canister bay and saw a red service light wink from the panel. He opened it with gloved hands, lifted the most recent Aircore canister unit, and inspected the seal. To a casual glance, the seal mark film was intact. Under his flashlight, a crescent of adhesive looked slightly smeared, as if someone had lifted the film and pressed it back with a tool that left no fingerprints. This was not wear. This was intent. Rowan reseated the canister and closed the panel. Panic was contagious in a closed system, and he refused to start it without a plan. He pointed at the bay. Lock this. No swaps until I clear it. And don't tell anyone why. Bram stared at him. Rowan, what is going on? Rowan held Bram's gaze until the boy looked away. Just do it. The station's hum went on. Indifferent. Somewhere behind them, another person called for help. Rowan felt the first sharp fear that the air itself had become a weapon. In Ward 9, Vea Nall moved fast without looking rushed, a habit learned on battle lines where the slow died and the frantic made mistakes. She was an off-world medic assigned to Arclight Depot's trauma rotation, trained to treat bodies that did not match human baselines and to keep her voice steady when the room did not. Tonight the cots were filling with people who did not bleed. They wheezed, shook, and drifted as if sleep had been poured into them. Vea leaned over a man in a grease-stained uniform and watched his lips fade toward blue. She checked pulse, temperature, and the tiny movements at the throat. Oxygen deprivation, early and widespread, but the monitors did not want to say it. A nurse pointed at the screen. Vitals are within range, the nurse said. Vea did not look up. The range is lying, Vea said. The nurse flinched, then glanced toward the glass office where the shift administrator stood with arms folded. The administrator stepped out, polite on the surface, firm underneath. Dr. Nall, we need to avoid unrest. The administrator said, call it fatigue, call it dehydration. Do not announce an oxygen event without confirmation. Vea kept her hands on the patient. Confirmation is in front of you. Their blood is hungry, Vea said. The administrator answered without raising her voice. Your physiology is different. Your thresholds are not ours. You could be misreading. It was not an argument about medicine. It was permission to deny. Rowan entered with a sterile bag in his hand. Hair damp with sweat, eyes sharp like a man who had already lost time to an invisible fire. He kept his request narrow, as if the station itself might overhear. "I need you, not your supervisor. You," Rowan said. Vaya followed him into a side alcove near the supply lockers. Rowan laid a strip of seal mark film on a tray and held it under the light. "Tell me what you see," Rowan said. Vaya studied the film. It was lifted and set back. "The adhesive has memory. Someone opened it," Vaya said. Rowan exhaled once. "Controlled. Medical is being told to label this as fatigue," Rowan said. Vaya's jaw tightened. "Because fatigue sounds like a personal failure. Oxygen loss sounds like a system failure," Vaya said. Rowan nodded. "I am seeing a drift that matches certain canister swaps," Rowan said. "The dips repeat. The timing is too clean." Vaya glanced back toward Ward 9, toward a woman staring at the ceiling with breath too shallow. "If we name it, they will panic," Rowan said. Vaya answered. "If we do not name it, they will die," Vaya said. Rowan's gaze flicked to her, then away, as if he did not allow himself to look at Hope. "I can prove tampering, but I need clinical confirmation," Rowan said. "They will claim stress, hysteria, anything." Vaya gave him a thin smile. "I need your data so they do not call me a frightened alien with a theory," Vaya said. A crash sounded in the ward. Someone had tried to stand and fallen. Vaya moved to go, and Rowan's fingers caught her sleeve for a fraction of a second. Then released, careful as if touch itself could be weaponized. "Work with me," Rowan said. "I already am," Vaya said. Later, Vaya opened a patient file to log a pattern of symptoms and times. The timestamps did not match the bed assignments she had just seen. A dosage note had been added that she did not write. A line labeled as exertion replaced the word she had typed. Vaya saved a copy offline and slipped it into her pocket drive. Then she went straight to Rowan, voice low and urgent. "They are editing medical history. If we do not move, they will erase the evidence before we even speak," Vaya said. Rowan's face went still. "Then we move now," Rowan said. Outside Ward 9, the station lights dimmed for a scheduled power balance. For a few seconds the corridor felt colder, and Vaya listened to people breathing, trying not to notice that it was harder than it should be. Dock Ring Delta smelled of metal, lubricant, and recycled air that carried every meal ever cooked on the station. A freighter eased into berth with the careful grace of mass and momentum pretending to be gentle. Its cargo manifest flashed across the receiving console with a familiar corporate stamp. The stamp read, "Marrowline Supply." A man in a clean jacket stepped down the ramp with a practiced smile. His badge read Field Liaison. He spoke like a rescuer arriving on cue. "Arclight Depot is lucky. We got your urgent request. Emergency stock, fast delivery. No questions asked," the liaison said. Rowan arrived with Bram at his side and Captain Inez Corvan behind them, flanked by two security officers from the Arclight Security Bureau. Rowan kept his tone professional, even as the air around him felt suddenly political. "I did not submit an urgent request," Rowan said. The liaison's smile did not wobble. "Then someone above you did. Commodities move faster when they need to," the liaison said. Rowan stepped to the pallet stack and ran a scanner over the first Air Corps canister crate. The numbers matched the manifest. The crate looked perfect, and that was what frightened him. He opened one unit in front of everyone. The canister casing was clean. The latch was new, and the seal mark film looked pristine. Rowan weighed it anyway, then placed it on a scale. The result was off by a fraction so small the crew would have laughed at it. Rowan did not laugh. "What is inside the media bed?" Rowan asked. The liaison answered smoothly. "Standard mix. Proprietary, of course," the liaison said. Rowan turned to Bram. "Bring me a reference canister from the locked bay," Rowan said. Captain Corvan stepped forward. "No, that bay is under restriction until we complete an internal review," Corvan said. Rowan met her eyes. "People are collapsing," Rowan said. Corvan did not flinch. "And if you start a public oxygen scare, the station riots. My job is to prevent that," Corvan said. My job is to keep them alive, Rowan said. Corvan gestured to the pallet line. This shipment solves your problem. Accept it, swap it, stabilize your numbers, and we all sleep, Corvan said. Rowan thought of Ward 9. He thought of Vea saving copies of records because the station itself could not be trusted to remember. He keyed a private channel to Vea. Marrowline delivered emergency stock. Corvan is blocking my reference check, Rowan said. Vea replied at once. Do not install anything you have not verified. If they want you to use it, they want you to stop asking questions, Vea said. Rowan swallowed. I need access to procurement logs to track approvals, Rowan said. Corvan stepped closer, voice cool. Your access is being reduced. Effective immediately. You will not dig into logs without security oversight, Corvan said. On whose authority? Rowan asked. Station safety, Corvan said. Rowan forced himself to nod, like a man accepting a gift, not a trap. Quarantine the shipment in the sump. No distribution until I sign off, Rowan said. Corvan's mouth tightened. You do not have that authority, Corvan said. Rowan did not raise his voice. Then arrest me, but if you push these into the system and people die, it will be on you, Rowan said. For a moment the ring went quiet except for the freighter's cooling fans. Then Corvan made a decision that looked like compromise and felt like pressure. Fine, it stays sealed, for now, Corvan said. Rowan watched the pallets roll toward lower storage. He knew, for now, was a countdown. That night, an internal clip began circulating on crew channels. It showed Vea near a storage hatch late in the shift, her hands on a seal panel, her head turned as if listening. The footage cut before context, before the next angle, before the reason. A caption appeared beneath it. Off-world medic seen near canister bay before oxygen incidents. Rowan felt his stomach drop. Vea's name was being tied to the air itself, and the station was already choosing what it wanted to believe. He opened his comm and sent one line. They're coming for you first. Vea replied with 2 words. I know. Somewhere deep in Arclight Depot, the oxyloop reclaimer kept turning, steady and blind, while the people who needed it most began to fear each other more than the air running out. 2 days after the first collapses, Arclight Depot felt like it was breathing through a narrowed throat. The oxyloop reclaimer still cycled on schedule, but every corridor carried the hush of people listening to their own lungs. Rowan Sable stood in the procurement office, staring at a screen that kept saying the same idea in different forms. Pending. The Frontline Transit Authority had flagged the station's standard Aircore canister resupply as delayed for inspection. The notice looked harmless, a routine compliance pause, the kind that kept auditors employed and commanders reassured. It also meant the sealed reference stock Rowan needed would not arrive. Not today, not tomorrow, maybe not in time at all. Captain Inez Corvan watched him from the doorway, arms folded, uniform immaculate as if cloth could keep order in a failing system. She did not threaten, she did not have to. Rowan pulled up the alternate option. The emergency shipment sitting in the sump with Marrowline supplies stamped across every crate. The paperwork was complete, the route cleared, signatures already lined up from offices he could not enter. It was, on paper, the fastest path to stability. If I install those units, we buy time, Rowan said. And if you do not, you lose it, Corvan replied. If they are altered, we trade time for a slow kill, Rowan said. Slow is still breathing, Corvan said. Rowan wanted to argue. He knew how arguments died on stations, drowned under the weight of procedure. The Breath Ledger Consortium did not need to appear in person. It lived in forms, in routing codes, in invisible hands that made one shipment wait and another glide through. A chime sounded and a new message arrived, urgent in tone but polite in language. The Transit Authority confirmed the delay again, now citing a mismatch in serial verification. Rowan stared at the line where his access token should have displayed details. It was blank. He tried another channel, then another. Each one returned a courteous denial, as if the station were apologizing while closing the door on his fingers. Corvan did not smile. She simply watched him learn where his authority ended. In Ward 9, the air tasted sharper, scrubbed harder, as if the station were trying to clean away fear. Rowan stepped in and saw the line of cots extend into a converted storage bay. Patients lay with eyes half open, skin damp, hands trembling in small waves. Dr. Sarah Quinn met him near the supply rack, face drawn from hours of triage. "We are calling it exhaustion," Quinn said, not as an opinion but as an order she had swallowed. "Do you believe that?" Rowan asked. "I believe something is wrong with the air," Quinn said. "I also believe we will have a riot if we say it out loud." A docking alert rolled through the station. Long-reach medevac had arrived, then another behind it, then a third that barely waited for clearance. Stretchers came off like cargo. The war outside did not pause for administrative caution. It shoved its wounded into Arclight Depot and demanded miracles in return. Each arrival added another layer of urgency to the air problem, because triage rooms could not function when staff could not think straight. Rowan watched order crumble in small ways. A nurse misread a label. A porter missed a latch. A patient tried to stand too soon because he could not process a simple warning. Rowan watched Vea Null move between beds. Quick hands, calm eyes. She did not waste words. When she passed him, she said only one thing. "They're getting worse faster," Vea said. "Because we are running out of clean choices," Rowan said. A nurse called for more oxygen masks. Someone shouted for additional filters. Rowan saw the same pattern he saw in his data. Small declines stacking until a body could not compensate. He walked back toward the service spine with a decision he hated forming in his chest. If he followed procedure, the station might last days. If he broke it, he would be blamed before the truth could reach daylight. The cartel did not have to kill him. It only had to make him the problem. Later, in a maintenance alcove off the spine corridor, Rowan laid out printouts and raw traces across a tool cart. He had pulled them from whatever sensors Corvan's lockouts had not touched, including the raw sense array that still whispered the station's real numbers to anyone patient enough to listen. Vea arrived with a pocket drive and a medical pad. Sleeves rolled. She took in the spread without comment, then set her own evidence beside his, like two workers comparing notes on a broken machine. These dips happen after each canister swap. Not every swap, just the ones from that emergency lot, Rowan said. Symptoms spike in the same windows, Vea said. Short breath, confusion, then collapse. It hits the people who keep the station running first. Rowan traced the timing back to Dock Ring Delta. Marrowline units came in early. The standard stock got delayed. That delay is the blade, Rowan said. Can you prove it? Vea asked. I can show the pattern, Rowan said. Proof is locked behind procurement logs I cannot access. Vea slid a file across to him. They changed my timestamps, Vea said. They changed my wording. They are rewriting clinical history while patients are still on the cots. They are building a story, Rowan said. And stories need villains, Vea said. Outside the alcove, a crew member walked by and glanced at Vea too long. Another whispered to a friend and looked away fast. As if caught, the station had begun to choose an enemy that could wear a face. Keep your head down, Rowan said. If I keep my head down, they will write whatever they want above it, Vea said. They returned to Ward 9 together, not side by side like lovers, but like two people who could not afford to fail. Vea checked a patient and murmured instructions to a nurse. Rowan adjusted the flow on a portable oxygen unit, watching the gauge tremble as if uncertain it could keep up. A loud voice rose near the entrance. She did this, someone said. Rowan turned and saw a dock worker pointing at Vea. The man looked exhausted, angry, and desperate to put his dread somewhere outside himself. Ever since she showed up, people started dropping, the worker said. Vea did not step back. She looked at the man as if measuring how far he had already fallen. Rowan stepped between them. People were dropping before you noticed. If you want someone to blame, blame the air, Rowan said. The air does not have a passport, the worker said. Neither does oxygen, Vea said. An alarm burst from the communications console, a priority tone that cut through murmurs and arguments. Rowan grabbed the handset and heard breathing on the other end. Ragged and wet. "This is Sable Kite," a pilot gasped. "We cleared Arclight." Then the crew started fading. "We cannot hold pressure. We cannot think straight. It feels like we are drowning in our own air. Do you hear me?" "I hear you," Rowan said. "Hold course. Reduce workload. Tell me when the last canister was swapped." "Marrowline," the pilot said. "Emergency stock. It was sealed. It was clean," they said. Rowan looked at Vea and saw the same cold understanding in her eyes. The cartel had not just poisoned a station. It had tested its weapon on a ship that could vanish into the dark and take the evidence with it. Commodore Halden Merrick arrived on the next shift as if summoned by crisis itself. He stepped onto Arclight Depot through Dock Ring Delta with a small escort and a case of documents that looked lighter than the authority they carried. His uniform was plain, the kind that made people stand straighter without being asked. Rowan saw him first in the command corridor, speaking to Corvan with a calm that suggested the problem was already solved. Provided everyone obeyed, Merrick's eyes tracked Rowan like a sensor finding a target. "Engineer Sable," Merrick said, "I am told you are talented and stubborn. I am told you are here to help." Rowan said, "I am here to stabilize oxygen distribution." Merrick said, "We cannot fight a war on empty lungs." He led Rowan and Vea into a small briefing room where the walls carried muted displays of ship lanes and supply nodes. Merrick did not ask Vea to sit. He did not tell her to leave. He let the room decide her place. Merrick opened his case and set down a contract from Marrowline Supply. Already prepared for Arclight Depot's signature. "This is the simplest path," Merrick said. "Exclusive resupply. Guaranteed throughput. No delays from transit authority inspections." "Why was the standard stock delayed?" Rowan asked. "Because uncontrolled supply is chaos," Merrick said. "Chaos kills more people than rationing ever will. People are already collapsing," Vea said. Merrick looked at her as if weighing a tool. "Yes," Merrick said, "and if this station fails, far more will die. We do not get to save everyone. Dr. Null, we get to save enough to win." Rowan felt heat climb his neck. "You are talking about planned loss?" Rowan asked. "I am talking about outcomes," Merrick said. "The war does not care about intentions. It cares about logistics. Oxygen is logistics. Oxygen is life," Rowan said. "Life is a resource in war," Merrick said. "Pretending otherwise is how wars last forever." Corvan entered with 2 security officers. "Under the Commodore's authority, we are seizing unauthorized diagnostic equipment used to access station sensors," Corvan said. "That data is the only way to keep people alive," Rowan said. "That data is also a way to incite panic," Corvan said. The officers took Rowan's portable scanner, drives, spare seal mark film strips, even the small light he used for close inspection. They did not touch his hands. They did not need to. "You will continue your duties," Merrick said, "within approved boundaries." "And if I refuse?" Rowan asked. "Then you become the story they need," Merrick said. "A single engineer who caused a station-wide scare. A man who broke rules in wartime." Vea held her chin level. "Are you threatening him?" Vea asked. "I am clarifying incentives," Merrick said. A tone pinged on the room console. Corvan glanced at the message and then at Vea. "An official order just arrived," Corvan said. "Dr. Vea Null is to report for formal questioning regarding her background, her physiology, and her access to medical records." Vea did not blink. Rowan felt his stomach tighten. Not with surprise, but with anger that had nowhere safe to go. "We will not let rumors fracture this station," Merrick said. "Compliance is how we breathe tonight." When he left, the room felt smaller. Vea looked at Rowan and spoke in the same steady tone she used with patients who were about to panic. "They are not only selling oxygen. They are selling fear," Vea said. Rowan nodded once, already hearing the next move of an enemy that never needed to show its face to tighten a grip. 2 days after the Commodore's visit, Arclight Depot stopped pretending. By the 4th day, the station sounded different when people inhaled. Ward 9 spilled into the service corridor. Cots lined under work lights. And rumor moved faster than any official bulletin. Vaya Nal called for quiet. Then for more hands. A nurse held up empty packaging and shook her head. We are out of masks. The nurse said. Cut tubing and share, Vaya said. A dockhand tried to stand. Then folded. His friend shouted that the air was poisoned. And someone shouted back that the off-world medic caused it. Vaya did not argue. She just moved to the next patient. Rowan Sable pushed through the crowd with a borrowed tool pouch. Security had taken his scanner. Not his training. He watched a patient breathe in quick shallow pulls. Then nodded once and turned away. Because nodding was all he could give. The Oxyloop reclaimer was working harder than it was built for. And Rowan had raised its output in tiny steps every hour. The station dashboard still showed stability. But the raw sensor trace sagged after each Marrowline canister swap. It never dipped enough to trigger an alarm. It dipped enough to steal judgment. Then strength. Then breath. Rowan keyed a private channel to Bram Holt. Give me the heatsink rise reading. Rowan said. Up 3 degrees since last watch. Bram said. Rowan swallowed. That rise was a deadline. He cut through side corridors toward the engineering spine. Because the reclaimer's extra work had to leave as waste heat. Heat sink lattice panels along the outer truss dumped it into space. And if they overheated, the reclaimer would throttle itself down. A scream cut through the spine. And Rowan ran into the smell of burnt insulation. A maintenance crew stood outside a sealed hatch with pale faces. A red warning light pulsing above the door. Cold Lock 2 had gone dark. Captain Inez Corvan's voice came over the intercom. Stay clear of Cold Lock 2. Electrical fire. Compartment is sealed, Corvan said. A woman on the crew slammed her fist on the hatch. My brother is in there, she said. Rowan pressed his palm to the metal and felt blower vibration fade. Then stop. The seal held like a coffin. Because if he opened it, smoke and hot gas would surge into the spine. If he kept it closed, whoever was inside would run out of oxygen. Vaya arrived with sleeves stained with antiseptic and took in the hatch and the warning light. How long? Vaya asked. 3 people on that shift, Rowan said. The seal starves them, Vaya said. The smoke kills everyone else, Rowan said. A young technician approached with wide eyes. Captain Corvan says we wait, the technician said. Waiting sounded like safety to people with no levers. Vaya stepped close to the hatch and spoke through it, turning her comm into the only air she could offer. If you are inside, lie flat, cover your mouth with cloth. Stay low, Vaya said. A soft thump sounded from inside. Then another, weaker. Rowan made a choice that would hurt either way and spoke to the crew in clipped instructions. He told them to seal corridor vents. Get suppression ready. And crack the hatch only a few inches. He pulled the manual lever. And the hatch unseated with a hiss. Hot air rushed out carrying smoke and the bite of melted plastic. The crew sprayed suppressant into the narrow gap while Rowan counted breaths in his head. Vaya had rigged a mask from tubing. And she slid it through the gap with firm, slow words. Take it, one at a time, Vaya said. A shaking hand grabbed the tubing and vanished. They pulled the first technician out limp but alive. And the second came out coughing with burned eyes. The third did not move. And Vaya checked the neck pulse. Then looked up and shook her head once. The crew went silent, and no one shouted about aliens now. They stared at the dead man and heard the station breathing wrong. Minutes later, a docking alarm blared and a vessel silhouette filled the external display. The transponder read Merrick's relief barge, arriving with perfect timing. Commodore Halden Merrick appeared on the command channel. Arclight Depot is approaching critical instability, Merrick said. I have certified canisters and a full maintenance team. Sign the exclusive resupply agreement. And we stabilize your air. Rowan listened with soot still on his hands. Ward 9 needed clean air now. And Cold Lock 2 had already cost 1 life. Merrick had turned rescue into a noose. And everyone could see it. Merrick's offer spread through the station like warmth. Because belief was easier than math, Corvan ordered the emergency crates moved closer to Breathe Bay and called it readiness. Then posted guards to enforce it. Rowan went straight to procurement. Because paper was the battlefield now. His console greeted him with new forms and missing privileges. When he opened the receiving log for Marrowline Supply, the timestamps had changed. A delivery that arrived at Dock Ring Delta during his shift now showed a different hour, and a signature line carried his name in a hand that was not his. He printed the page and stared until the letters blurred. The cartel did not need to frame him with lies. It framed him with official truth. Rowan walked to Corvan's office and held up the printout. "These are not my approvals," Rowan said. "Then someone used your token," Corvan said. "My token was locked under security," Rowan said. "That is your problem to prove," Corvan said. A new broadcast rolled in from Terran Continuity Command. Short and heavy with consequence. "Maintain station stability. Prevent panic. Protect supply lines for the front." It did not mention oxygen tampering or edited medical files. It mentioned order. Merrick used that message like a shield. He stepped into a public briefing on the dock concourse with cameras rolling. Crew members gathered in clusters, some carrying masks and some carrying anger. Merrick spoke with the calm tone of a man who decided outcomes for others. "War does not pause because we feel afraid," Merrick said. "Frontline transit authority lanes are strained. Inspection delays protect us from sabotage. Marrowline Supply can bypass those delays, but only with a single accountable contract." A clerk raised her hand with a trembling voice. "People are fainting. Will your canisters stop it?" the clerk asked. "They will stabilize oxygen levels," Merrick said. "Stability requires unity, and unity requires discipline." Rowan pushed through the crowd and spoke before he could stop himself. "Discipline is not the same as truth," Rowan said. Heads turned toward him with relief, then with suspicion. Merrick looked at him as if he had expected this, then placed words carefully so the crowd would do the rest. "Engineer Sable has raised concerns," Merrick said. "Concerns are valuable when they stay within protocol. When concerns become public panic, they become sabotage." That afternoon, Corvan delivered a sealed notice to Rowan in the service spine. "Temporary detention order," Corvan said. Rowan felt his chest tighten. "On what grounds?" Rowan asked. "Interference with critical life support operations. Unauthorized access attempts. Risk of inciting station-wide unrest," Corvan said. Rowan stared at the words and heard his own breathing. Every note he had taken could now be called evidence of guilt. And every question he had asked could be called a threat. He tried to send a message to Vea, and the network returned a warning about monitored communications. Merrick had not just framed him. Merrick had made him radioactive. Corvan lowered her voice, almost human. "Come quietly. You can make this worse," Corvan said. "If I come quietly, they will install those canisters," Rowan said. "And if you do not, they will blame you for every collapse," Corvan said. Rowan took one slow breath and understood the trap. Order had been chosen over truth, and he had been chosen as the cost. Vea did not wait for the interrogation summons. She used the only leverage left to her, medical priority, and stepped in with a clipboard when security officers reached for Rowan. "Patient transfer. He is needed in Ward 9. Now," Vea said. "He is not a patient," Corvan said. "He is the person who can keep patients alive. That makes him critical care," Vea said. For once, the station's rules worked in her favor. 2 officers escorted Rowan through the corridor into Ward 9, where cameras watched and too many witnesses had names and families. It was harder to erase a scene that 100 people lived. Inside, Vea moved Rowan behind a privacy screen and spoke low. "Your logs are compromised. My files are compromised. We need proof that breath loss has a pattern. Not a story, a pattern," Vea said. Rowan nodded with a tight jaw. "I can show timing. I cannot show the procurement chain without access," Rowan said. Vea slid her pocket drive into a ward terminal that still ran on local power. She pulled up patient charts she had copied before edits and lined them by symptom onset, by shift, and by dock arrival times. Rowan leaned in and did the same with his raw sensor scraps. Where the station dashboard showed smooth lines, his trace showed teeth, and the teeth matched her timestamps. Every spike in confusion and collapse followed a window after Marrowline swaps. Not always the same person or bay. Always the same interval. A nurse watched them and whispered. "Are you saying the air is being managed?" the nurse asked. Rowan answered carefully. "I am saying the decline repeats. And repeats mean someone can predict it," Rowan said. Vea stepped out from the screen and addressed the ward staff with practical orders. She told them to log the exact minute they saw the first blue lips. Log the bay number on the nearest mask unit. And log when the next canister crate was moved. She turned fear into data. Because data could fight paper. Corvan entered with Merrick behind her. Merrick glanced at the crowded ward. Then at Vea. Then at Rowan. Not angry. Just confirming leverage. "This is an improper use of medical space," Merrick said. "This is where people collapse in public. It is the only place you cannot edit fast enough," Vea said. "Dr. Nall, you are passionate," Merrick said. "Passion is not a supply plan." He held up the contract again. "Sign. And the station breathes tonight," Merrick said. A system notice chimed, sharp and controlled. Ventilation in a civilian corridor switched into emergency isolation. Doors sealing and pressure equalizing. People began to shout over station communications. And a mother cried that her child's room had sealed. Rowan felt it in his lungs first. Air thinning too fast for a leak and too clean for a fire. Vea ripped open a wall panel and checked feed routing with trained speed. "It is a false isolation sequence. It is pulling oxygen out of a block, then claiming it is protecting it," Vea said. Merrick did not deny it. He kept his tone level and kept the same offer on the table. "Sign. And I reverse emergency isolation and deploy certified units. Refuse. And we ride the procedure until the station breaks," Merrick said. Rowan looked at Vea through the ward noise and saw calculation. Not fear. If they signed now, people in that sealed block would breathe again fast. If they signed now, the cartel would own the station's throat. Vea stepped closer. "How many minutes can that block last?" Vea asked. Rowan listened to the chatter and did rough math in his head. "Some rooms less than an hour," Rowan said. Vea nodded once. "Then we have minutes, not arguments," Vea said. Rowan looked down at the pocket drive in her hand. Copied charts and unedited history. He could protect that proof by running, hiding, and delaying. He could also save a sealed corridor by surrendering control. He met Vea's eyes, and she did not tell him what to do. She only stayed, as if sharing the weight was her choice. Rowan spoke so only she could hear. "If we sign, we save them now. If we do not, we might save many later," Rowan said. "And we might lose them before later arrives," Vea said. A child cried over station communications again, and the sound cut through every plan. Rowan reached for the contract that would end the panic and start a cage, while Vea tightened her grip on the drive that could break the cartel later. They stood in Ward 9 with a station waiting on their hands. In the next few minutes, love stopped being a feeling. It became a decision about who got to breathe first, and why. Arclight Depot did not breathe easier after the contract. It only breathed again, and that difference felt like mercy. The sealed civilian block reopened within minutes. Vent fans spun up, pressure equalized, and terrified people learned to inhale without crying. Vea Nall moved through Ward 9, touching wrists, watching pupils, listening for the wet rasp that meant damage had already begun. Rowan Sable watched the station's numbers climb back toward normal and watched Commodore Halden Merrick leave with his escort. Calm as if he had merely balanced a budget. He and Vea gathered what they had left. Raw traces from the raw sense array. Copied patient charts. Doc arrival times. And the canister swap schedule Bram Holt kept in a pocket notebook. They spread it across a treatment table after the last ambulance run cleared the doorway. Rowan drew lines between events. Not with ink but with attention. A medevac arrival. A canister swap. Then a wave of collapses. A Marrowline pallet moved from the sump. Then confusion in the service spine. Vea added clinical notes in plain language. She wrote what a tired body did when air quietly failed. Rowan leaned closer. "Look at the lane codes," Rowan said. Vea followed his finger. Some supply routes came in from the same transfer hubs, stamped by the Frontline Transit Authority, and those were the routes that always arrived right before oxygen dips. Other routes arrived without that stamp, and those arrivals did not match the collapses. It is not random, Vaya said. It is scheduled, Rowan said. They found the repeat interval that scared Rowan most. The dip lagged the swap by a predictable stretch. Long enough for worker to return to duty. Short enough for blame to land on fatigue. They shaped the timing so nobody panics until it is too late. Vaya said. They shaped it so people beg for a savior. Rowan said. Commander Toma Vance did not call through station channels. His voice arrived as a short burst on a medical relay Vaya used for casualty updates. Dr. Null, I need your eyes. Do not forward this, the message said. Vaya listened twice, then showed Rowan. The commander's name carried weight even here, because his frontline sector depended on Arclight Depot. Rowan typed a reply. We need access to restricted route codes. We need proof of manipulation. The answer came quickly. If your station falls, my corridor falls. I can provide a bait order that forces a ledger touch. They built the bait with care. Vance would request a rush resupply, but the shipment would be empty shells with valid seals. A load that looked urgent on paper and useless in reality. The point was to watch which hidden lane approved it, and which credential moved it. Rowan sent the draft order back with one added detail. A narrow berth window at Dock Ring Delta that only an insider could route in time. He also added a harmless checksum phrase that only their team would recognize. If it appeared later in a routing reply, they would know the response came from inside the hidden channel, not from public scheduling. Now we need one person in station security to blink, Rowan said. Captain Inez Corvan appeared at the ward entrance. She did not wear her helmet, and her hair was slightly out of place. You are late for questioning, Corvan said. I am triaging a station, Vaya said. Corvan's eyes flicked to the beds, to the child sleeping with an oxygen mask taped too tight. The Commodore wants a signature file on you. Blood work, origin, everything, Corvan said. Rowan stepped forward. People died in Cold Lock too, Rowan said. I know, Corvan said. Help us see the routes, Rowan said. Corvan hesitated. If I open those logs, I am done, Corvan said. If you do not, you will be guarding a coffin, Vaya said. Corvan looked away, then back. 1 minute, no copies on station drives, Corvan said. Rowan and Vaya followed her to a small security terminal tucked behind a partition. Corvan inserted a physical key and unlocked a diagnostic view Rowan had never been allowed to touch. Route lanes appeared like arteries, and the privileged identifier sat over them like a thumb. This one, it matches our collapse windows, Rowan said. Corvan scrolled, then froze. That lane is not supposed to be visible, Corvan said. She pulled up lane history and opened a live trace buffer instead of exporting a file. Read it, Corvan said. Rowan read and felt his stomach drop. The lane did not just move canisters. It moved compliance checks, delaying standard stock while accelerating emergency pallets. The delays were signed with Merrick's code, hidden as a commodity sign-off. He hid it inside procedure. Corvan whispered. The screen went black, a warning flashed, then cleared itself. The terminal rebooted as if nothing had happened. They saw us, Corvan said. A second later, station lights dimmed for a power balance, and Rowan heard doors locking in sequence. The log system had just tried to erase the footprints under their feet. Rowan did not try to outrun a system. He tried to outlast it. He and Vaya returned to Ward 9 with Corvan a step behind. Suddenly less certain of her uniform. Logs are being scrubbed. They will rewrite everything, Corvan said. Then we do not use their logs, Rowan said. The raw sense array was a redundancy that recorded raw airflow, pressure shifts, and thermal load in a low-priority cache few people checked. Rowan had tuned it weeks ago to improve diagnostic fidelity. Now it was their lifeline. Rowan connected a clean drive and began pulling unfiltered streams. Vaya moved from bed to bed, not as a doctor now, but as an organizer of truth. She asked each staff member the same questions. What minute did the first collapse happen? Which bay did the last mask unit come from? When did a Marrowline pallet pass the ward doors? She wrote answers on paper, photographed the paper, and handed the paper to someone else to keep moving. Rowan watched the raw data scroll and saw the same teeth in the line. Airflow dipped, then rose, then dipped again. A porter hurried in. They're pulling the real stock from the sump. Marrowline crew is moving crates back to Dock Ring Delta. The porter said. They're cleaning the scene. Vea said. I can delay them. Corvan said. Delay is not enough. If they leave with the canisters, they leave with the proof. Rowan said. We have clinical chains. We need physical chains. Vea said. Rowan sent Bram to open a maintenance access path that bypassed the main corridor cameras. Then he looked at Corvan. Give us one blind corridor. Rowan said. I cannot erase cameras. Corvan said. I do not need erasure. I need one angle where witnesses are human, not lenses. Rowan said. Corvan took a breath that sounded like surrender. Spine corridor. Section 3. There is a dead spot during power balances. Corvan said. Then we go now. Rowan said. They moved through the station as the lights returned to full brightness. The closer they got to Dock Ring Delta, the more masks they saw, and the more people pressed against walls and watched in silence. At the edge of the sump, Rowan heard crate wheels, the low grunt of loaders, and the measured voice of a Marrowline foreman calling timing. The foreman sounded calm, because calm was what you sounded like when you owned the air. Rowan peeked around a corner and saw pallets moving toward the dock ramp. The crates were sealed. The seal mark film looked untouched. And that was the point. If we confront them, they call security, Vea said. Security is already here, Rowan said. Corvan stepped forward. Stand down. Station safety hold, Corvan said. The foreman smiled, polite and firm. We have authorization, the foreman said. Rowan saw the lane stamp on the pallet tag. It matched the privileged identifier from their medical table. Dressed up as routine ink. He did not grab it. He let other eyes land on it first. Corvan lifted her hand to her wrist console, then stopped. Whatever signal she would send might go straight to Merrick. Do not call. Witness, Rowan said. Vea moved among nearby workers, speaking low, asking them to look, to remember, to read the crate numbers out loud, and to notice the lane stamp. She was building a crowd that could not be erased. A dock worker with grease on his forearms lifted a personal recorder and spoke the crate numbers into it, steadying his own breath as he spoke. Another worker repeated the lane stamp so the sound carried. Corvan watched them, then looked away as if she could not bear to see her authority used for something honest. Bram's voice came over a private channel. Maintenance gate is open, Bram said. A lock tone sounded from the corridor behind them, heavy and final. Doors sealed, vents shifted, and the air pressure changed by a small but unmistakable amount. Rowan felt it in his ears. Cold Lock 2 had closed again. Not for fire this time, but for control. This is the line, Rowan said. Then we hold it, Vea said. Arclight Depot did not have a sunrise, but it had a moment when everyone realized the air was not theirs anymore. It happened when the freight line at Dock Ring Delta began to move in reverse. Pallets rolling toward the ramp instead of away from it. The crates carried Marrowline supply seals, and the lane stamp that had haunted Rowan Sable's notes sat on every tag like permission. A crowd gathered without being called. People stood with masks in hand, not sure whether to shout or pray. They watched the cartel crew guide the load with calm gestures, as if leaving with the station's breath was normal commerce. Rowan felt the pressure shift before any alarm sounded. The change was subtle, a thinness at the back of his throat that made him swallow twice. Then the station's public intercom spoke in a reassuring voice about safety. A message scrolled on wall panels about an automatic pressure release procedure to protect civilian blocks. It sounded responsible, like a system protecting itself. Vea Nall heard it and stiffened. She did not wait for confirmation. She sprinted toward Ward 9, because she knew what panic did to lungs already on the edge. Rowan followed, pushing through bodies that moved slower than they should. Captain Inez Corvan tried to intercept him near the service spine. Her hand raised as if a gesture could stop a flood. Engineer Sable, stand down, Corvan said. People are about to drop. Rowan said. This is a controlled safety sequence. Corvan said. It is controlled. Yes. Safe. No. Rowan said. They reached Ward 9 and found the worst kind of quiet. It was the quiet of people listening for the next breath. A child clutched a mask too big for his face. Eyes wide and wet. A nurse squeezed a manual bag valve with shaking hands, counting out loud to stay sane. Vea moved between cots, checking lips and nails, listening for the wheeze that meant the body was clawing for oxygen. She did not speak in speeches. She gave orders that turned fear into motion. Move the weakest closer to the wall ports. Share masks if you must. Do not run, Vea said. Rowan went to the nearest service panel and pulled it open with borrowed tools. The air feed graph on the local monitor dipped in a pattern that looked like a staircase. It was not a leak. It was a planned reduction. Step by step, slow enough to look like system behavior and fast enough to break a crowded block. Rowan keyed a channel he suspected was monitored anyway. He needed the station to hear the truth, even if it hated him for it. This is not safety. This is leverage, Rowan said. A reply came from a voice that was too calm to be human comfort. Commodore Halden Merrick. Engineer Sable, your anxiety is contagious. Sign compliance, and the station stabilizes. Resist, and the procedure completes, Merrick said. Rowan's hands clenched around the panel edge. He could see the path from the procedure to the cots. He could also see the cartel crew rolling the last real canisters away. Rowan looked at Vea. She was bending over a middle-aged mechanic, fingers pressed to his wrist, face tight with concentration. Rowan spoke low. If I chase the crates, Ward 9 loses time, Rowan said. Vea did not look up. If you do not chase them, we lose the future, Vea said. If we win and people die, it is not winning, Rowan said. A small alarm sounded from a portable oxygen unit, a warning tone that made heads snap toward it. Vea touched the machine and shook her head. We are close, Vea said, close to the line where bodies stop compensating. Rowan turned and pushed back toward Dock Ring Delta. The corridor was thicker with fear now, and voices rose in clipped questions. Are we under attack? Is the alien doctor doing this? Why can't they just fix it? Rowan did not answer them. He could not waste air on words that would not help. At the dock concourse, Merrick stood near the ramp with his escort. He did not wear a helmet. He did not need one. His face was composed, posture relaxed, as if he were hosting a negotiation instead of a siege. Vea arrived a breath behind Rowan, as if she had refused to stay where she could be used as a hostage. She stepped into the open with the steady gaze of a clinician about to deliver a diagnosis nobody wanted. Merrick met her eyes first, not Rowan's. He knew where the station's anger liked to land. Dr. Null, you should return to your ward, Merrick said. I came to stop you from hiding behind procedure, Vea said. This is not hiding. This is order, Merrick said. This is controlled hypoxia. You are starving people by increments so they will beg, Vea said. Merrick's expression did not change. War is a famine of everything. I am choosing where hunger goes so it ends sooner, Merrick said. Vea stepped closer, close enough that the crowd could hear every word. In Ward 9, I watched a man suffocate without drama, Vea said. His lips turned blue and he never screamed. Merrick's escort shifted, uneasy, because the truth sounded worse than any accusation. This is not a single failure. It is patterned. It is timed. It is repeatable, Vea said. Merrick looked at Rowan. Your engineer and your doctor are talented. They are also naive, Merrick said. Rowan did not raise his voice. If you want signatures, turn the air back on first, Rowan said. Sign, then it returns, Merrick said. The crowd murmured. People looked from Merrick to the crates to the ward corridor behind them. They could feel the station thinning. They could also feel how easy it would be to blame a villain with a face. Vea spoke again, and her voice carried because it was built on exhaustion and care. You cannot negotiate with lungs. They do not understand politics. Vea said. For the first time, Merrick's calm showed a crack. Not anger, but impatience. Then choose. Breathe now under my terms. Or fight and watch your station fade, Merrick said. Rowan felt the trap close. He needed a third option. And he had only minutes to build it. Rowan ran back into the service spine and into the guts of Arclight Depot. The station was a web of ducts, valves, and pressure buffers that only looked simple on a dashboard. He knew its habits the way a medic knew pulse points. He found Bram Holt waiting near a maintenance gate. Eyes wide but steady, Bram held a coil of patch tubing and a small manual valve assembly. The kind used for temporary reroutes during repairs. Tell me you can do it, Bram said. Rowan nodded. We do not have to do it perfectly. We have to do it fast, Rowan said. They moved with Corvan behind them, not stopping them now, not ordering them down. Her silence was a choice. Rowan opened a junction panel and traced the civilian block feed to a branching manifold. Merrick's false procedure was pulling oxygen out by throttling the manifold, then pretending it was pressure relief. Rowan could not fight it at the control level. He could bypass it physically. He pointed to a narrow auxiliary line that served a storage bay and an unused workshop. That line still has flow. It is low priority, Rowan said. Bram stared. It cannot support Ward 9, Bram said. It does not have to. It has to keep Ward 9 alive while we break the paperwork, Rowan said. Vea arrived, breathless, carrying a small stack of handwritten witness sheets and a pocket drive sealed in a sterile bag. She had turned the ward into a courtroom without walls. How long? Vea asked. Enough to buy minutes, not enough to buy comfort, Rowan said. Vea nodded. Minutes are lives, Vea said. Rowan set to work. He did not narrate his thinking. He acted. He rerouted flow, added a manual valve, and used the station's own pressure buffers to smooth the surge so alarms would not scream. He kept the change small and distributed, like adding threads to a fraying rope. Corvan watched and finally spoke. This is unauthorized, Corvan said. Yes, Rowan said. They will mark you as a saboteur, Corvan said. Rowan tightened a coupling. They already did, Rowan said. Bram asked, voice quiet. Why not stop and clear your name? Bram asked. Rowan answered without slowing. Because names do not breathe, Rowan said. The auxiliary line began to carry more flow. A gauge climbed, then steadied. Rowan listened to the duct vibration and felt relief. Not joy. Relief was all he could afford. Vea keyed the ward channel. Ward 9, you should feel a slight rise. Do not change settings. Do not waste it, Vea said. A nurse replied, voice shaking with gratitude. We feel it. Keep it coming, the nurse said. Rowan wiped sweat from his brow and stared at the manifold. He had created a hidden airway, a temporary lung for the station. It would not hold forever, but it would keep the weakest alive while they moved the only weapon that could end Merrick. The weapon was evidence. Commander Toma Vance's burst channel lit up on Vea's pad. His voice came fast now, stripped of ceremony. I can push a broadcast window. I need payload now, before your station logs vanish, Vance said. Rowan looked at the sterile bag in Vea's hand. Inside was the pocket drive holding copied charts, raw sensor traces, and the lane stamp that linked Marrowline supply to the privileged route. Vea held it like it weighed more than metal. If we send it, they will come for us, Vea said. Rowan nodded. If we do not, they will come for everyone, Rowan said. Corvan stepped closer. They will claim your data as fabricated, Corvan said. Vea answered. That is why I have witnesses, Vea said. She lifted the witness sheets. Names, shift times written in words, observations repeated across departments. It was not one file. It was a chain. Rowan made a decision that hurt. He pulled up a station form on a maintenance terminal, the same kind that had been used to frame him. He began filling it out with his own hands. Vea stared. What are you doing? Vea asked. Rowan kept typing. I am giving them the story they want, so they stop looking for the story they fear, Rowan said. He logged an unauthorized reroute and signed his own name. He made himself the responsible party on paper again. It was poison, but it was controlled poison. It would delay Merrick's legal response, because even a cartel had to process a report before it punished it. Corvan's face tightened. "You are burying yourself," Corvan said. "I am buying time," Rowan said. Vea sent the packet to Commander Vance through the burst window, encrypted and mirrored. Then she sent the witness chain as separate fragments, so no single deletion would kill it. A confirmation blinked. The payload was out. For a moment, the station felt less trapped. The air was still thin in places, and people were still afraid. But the cartel's legal shield had a crack, and cracks could widen. Merrick did not collapse in a firefight. He did not fall to a hero's bullet. He fell the way systems fail, when their own logic gets exposed to light. The next broadcast came from Terran Continuity Command, and this time the tone was not about calm. It was about investigation. It named the Breath Ledger Consortium as an entity of concern. It named the lane stamp that had hidden inside procedure. It ordered Frontline Transit Authority to freeze Marrowline supply shipments pending audit. On Dock Ring Delta, Merrick stood with his escort as crew terminals flashed updates. His calm did not vanish, but it turned colder, as if warmth had been a luxury. Rowan approached with Vea and Corvan at his side. The crowd had grown, and now it watched Merrick instead of Vea. Merrick spoke first. "You think you won because a command office asked questions?" Merrick asked. Rowan answered. "I think you lose because you cannot hide behind forms anymore," Rowan said. Merrick's eyes narrowed. "Forms are civilization. You break them, you get chaos," Merrick said. Vea replied. "You use them to ration breath," Vea said. Merrick did not deny it. "Yes, because war is chaos unless someone holds the throat of logistics," Merrick said. Rowan felt anger rise, then forced it down. He needed clarity more than rage. "You are saying you starved civilians to end the war sooner?" Rowan asked. Merrick nodded once. "I am saying I reduced total casualties. I made the front move with certainty. A fast victory saves more lives than a slow stalemate," Merrick said. Vea looked at him like she would look at a tumor on a scan. "You turned life support into a bargaining chip. You made people plead for a contract," Vea said. Merrick's voice stayed even. "They pleaded to survive. Survival is not clean. It is an equation," Merrick said. Corvan stepped forward. Her uniform looked heavier now. "Commodore Merrick, you are ordered to stand down pending inquiry," Corvan said. Merrick glanced at her. "And if I refuse?" Merrick asked. Corvan answered, voice tight. "Then you become what you always feared. A public criminal," Corvan said. Merrick's escort shifted again. They were not loyal to him. They were loyal to the image of legality. And that image had turned. Merrick looked out at the crowd. And for the first time he seemed tired. Not guilty, not broken, but tired, as if he had carried a war on his back and resented anyone who demanded purity. "You will get your moral victory," Merrick said. "Then the war will last longer. And you will count bodies and wonder if I was right." Rowan met his gaze. "Maybe, but you do not get to decide who suffocates so you can sleep," Rowan said. Merrick's jaw tightened. He did not shout. He did not beg. He let security take his arm. Because the fight he preferred was on paper. And paper had turned against him. In Ward 9, the auxiliary airflow held long enough for proper canisters to be redistributed under new oversight. The station's breath steadied, not perfect, but honest. Rowan stood in the service spine later, watching Bram tighten a panel. Corvan approached, holding a sealed report. "They will still come for you," Corvan said. Rowan nodded. "I filed the reroute under my name. I knew they would," Rowan said. Corvan hesitated. "Why?" Corvan asked. Rowan looked toward Ward 9, where Vea was speaking softly to a frightened nurse. "Because the station needed one person to blame. Better me than her. Better me than a crowd," Rowan said. Vea joined them, face drawn, hands still smelling of antiseptic. She did not touch Rowan. She stood close enough that he could feel her presence like warmth near a cold vent. You did not save your name. Vea said. I saved breath, Rowan said. Vea's voice softened. People will still want a villain. Vea said. Rowan said. Then we keep showing them the chain. Over and over. They walked the concourse as the station lights returned to normal cycling. Some people looked away in shame. Others nodded, not knowing what to say. A few whispered thanks without stepping too close. As if gratitude might be contagious too. At Dock Ring Delta, the ramp stood empty. The crates were gone, but so was the cartel's quiet ownership. In the silence, Rowan realized the new battle would not be against a man like Merrick. It would be against the hunger for simple stories. The need to hang fear on a face. Vea spoke as if reading his thoughts. Keeping others breathing is how we keep our humanity. Vea said. Rowan answered, voice low. And how we keep each other. Rowan said. The station hummed on, not as a miracle, not as a dream, but as a place where ordinary people chose, again and again, to give someone else the next breath. Arclight Depot kept running, not because it was perfect, but because ordinary people refused to let breath become a commodity again. The ducts still hummed, the heat sinks still glowed. Ward 9 still carried scars that no report could erase. Rowan Sable knew his name might never be clean on paper, and Vea Null knew the station would always search for a simple villain when fear returned. But they also knew something stronger than fear had taken root. It was a quiet habit of watching the numbers, asking hard questions, and choosing to keep someone else alive even when it cost them. Somewhere beyond the docks, the war would keep grinding, and new systems would try to hide behind procedures. Yet on this station, two people proved the first step to winning was not violence. It was refusing to trade away a single human breath, and refusing to let the truth be rewritten. If this story stayed with you, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more sci-fi stories where survival is real. Love is earned, and the cost of victory is never free.